So I think it's pretty easy to see that I am what would be defined as a conservative man. But I believe that I also have a lot of what would be defined, I guess, as liberal sensibilities, but I just call them common sense way of thinking. You know, I there's a lot of things that go on in this world where I believe, for example, government shouldn't be interfering in our everyday lives. I believe that we as the people should have more of a say-so about what we do as individuals, and I think that kind of plays all across the board. I don't limit that to gun rights. I don't limit that to voting rights. I don't limit that to, the way we drive our cars, things like that. But I do believe that there are a certain amount of rules and regulations that should be in place, at least for the overall safety and well-being of individuals. I don't think that we should put things in place simply to add more layers of regulation. Typically, what ends up happening on one side is you have government regulation that comes into play just for the sake of more government regulation. It doesn't actually really benefit a larger portion of the population. It benefits a very small portion of the population and actually hurts a very large portion of the population. So, but that goes both ways. So, one such topic, obviously, that is constantly coming to the forefront for various reasons is abortion. And as you guys know, here in Texas, on September 1st, the state legislature passed, or I guess put into effect, they passed it some time ago, I guess maybe like May or June, something like that. But it went into effect September 1st, which was Wednesday. And it's a very restrictive abortion law. It is not a ban on abortions, but in some cases, it could pretty easily be viewed as essentially a ban on abortion. Now, what I'm going to talk about here is just kind of the premise of certain things. I would like to make it very clear that I, as a man, don't believe that my opinion is the more valuable one. I can have an opinion about something, but I don't believe that my opinion is the most valuable one. I believe that a woman's opinion is most valuable on this scenario, in this case. And I think that's just realistic. I think that's the reality of it. I believe that there are situations where my opinion is more valuable than a woman because it affects me more. In this scenario, it certainly affects women more, and I certainly believe that their opinion of this is more valuable. So I will say that very clearly in the very beginning here that I do have certain opinions of certain things, but I don't believe that mine is overriding, if that makes sense. So I'll try to kind of just nutshell some of this stuff. And I think what you guys will see is that what I'm getting to is kind of something that I've witnessed online over the past couple of days. I actually made a post about it on my Facebook page and over on my Instagram page, jason.husk, and it was blowing my mind. So little background here. So new law goes into place on September 1st, and the nutshell of it is that that an abortion cannot be performed in the state of Texas after a heartbeat can be detected by ultrasound. In most scenarios, that's about 6 weeks. So when you're talking about like from, I guess, the time frame of knowing you're pregnant, usually the doctors define that as about 4 weeks. By the time you realize you're pregnant, it's about 4 weeks, as my understanding. Not a woman, so I'm just kind of maybe regurgitating a little bit of information here. I'm not the most educated person on all this, but I do have a slight opinion on certain things. So my understanding is that doctors traditionally, once you realize that that you're pregnant, they pretty much consider that about 4 weeks along. So what that means is that there's a 2-week window between the time you realize you're pregnant and the pretty much last day you're able to get an abortion. That varies a little bit, but that's the premise of certain things. So I believe that there's also some other stuff that's in the law, in the new law. I believe it has to do with, it's almost like a whistleblower kind of situation where I guess if someone is aware of an attempted abortion after this period of time or after a heartbeat is detected, that if you turn that person in, I guess you can get $5,000. I think that's kind of fucked up. I think that's a pretty ridiculous thing. I'm not sure, and I haven't really gone into the details of why. I did see something that there was a negotiation of some kind on all sides, because there was some other restrictive stuff in there, and so I guess that was one of the compromises somewhere on something. So, but going into the abortion situation is that, again, I'm not a fan of it. It's not something that I'm going to sit here and advocate for. And yeah, hey, abortion's for all. It's like you're on Oprah, and abortion for you, and abortion for you, and you get an abortion, and you get an abortion. I'm not saying that. I'm not going to advocate to say, hey, that abortions are great. No, I don't believe that I have the position on that I'm the right individual to be able to tell any woman what to do specifically with their body. I'm not going to tolerate someone telling me what to do with mine. But I started seeing this thing, and of course I've seen it before. This is something that gets recirculated every time a new abortion law comes into effect. Texas is not the first one, but it does happen to be the most restrictive one on the books of any state in the country. I think they referred to it as first of its kind legislature, is what all the articles and everything have been calling it, which usually means it'll start setting a standard and a precedent for, because it did go into law here in Texas, and the Supreme Court, U.S. Supreme Court actually refused to hear it for multiple reasons. But what will more than likely end up happening is first of its kind legislature typically leads to other states enacting certain similar types of legislation. So again, slippery slope, and I can kind of get into some of that down the road. I think some things start becoming reactionary, and I'll kind of get into that down the road. But every time an abortion topic comes up, I've seen this thing before. It's not new. It's not something, but I started seeing it a lot on people I went to school with, people that I've been around for quite some time, but from all over the country. Not just people here in Texas, but people from all over the country. People that don't live here are making comments and statements about the law that's here in Texas. It doesn't affect them, but I get it. At some point, it may end up that affecting. That's why it's called, first of its kind legislature. It may at some point end up affecting them if their state takes a similar position. So, and what it is, in a nutshell, it's a meme that essentially advocates for young males to receive a vasectomy until they can prove that they are emotionally and financially stable enough to have a child. So that's kind of where I'm at right now, and I see this, and that kind of fucking throws me for a loop because of the insanity and the hypocrisy in that statement. It's and granted, the guy who wrote it, the original one I saw, he makes the statement, and then at the very end he says, now if telling a man what to do with his body bothers you, then it should bother you about a man telling a woman what to do with her body. I get that perspective, but there are people that are taking it beyond that and saying that, and they're actually advocating for things like this. And so I think that's what's the fucked up part that I think of here. It's like, okay, and this is where the reactionary part comes in, and where it becomes in a slippery slope, and people start going down this road, and it's like one-upsmanship. It says, okay, well, you know what, you're not telling us that that we can't get pregnant or that we can't have an abortion, you're limiting the time in which we can. So I think that there should be responsible regulation as to the time frame of it. I'm not sure that 6 weeks is that number, but certainly not, some of these states where you basically can have an abortion, like in New York, where the kid up to the point where the baby takes its first breath. Like I think in New York, the law there is you can actually have an abortion all the way up to the point where the baby takes its first breath. It could be in the birth canal coming out, and the mother can abort that baby all the way up to that point. And I guess that's, hey, you got one extreme, you got another extreme. It's kind of fucked up. But what ends up happening is this tit for tat thing, this reactionary standard. So, because you're limiting the time frame in which a woman can make that decision, now what we're going to do is we're going to somehow punish young males. What you've got are older individuals, adults, making these decisions, and the people that now should be getting punished for it are young men. Young men who aren't making any of these decisions. Young men who don't even understand what the fuck's going on. And somehow that's the advocacy. Somehow that sounds reasonable to certain people. And that's an insane fucking statement when you're talking about making someone get a medical procedure, a young male get a medical procedure so that he's physically unable to get a woman pregnant without knowing the long-term effects of what it does. And I guess that's the point. Because look, that's why I'm saying I don't believe I'm the best person to make a decision for what a woman should have with her body. But I do believe I'm in the best position to say what a man should have done for his body. Women say these kinds of things, and these statements are being made, and I've actually heard this shit from guys too that are so, oh my God. There's certain fucking guys that I've heard this from, and I'm like, I will fuck you up. You don't fucking get it. And you know what? The reality is, you got so much fucking estrogen in you that I wouldn't define you as a man. There literally are guys, biological men, that are advocating for shit like this, and I'm just sitting there. You're not a fucking guy because you've never used your testosterone. Just because no one wants to fucking mate with you, no one wants to have a child with you. You're like a fucking deer in the woods with one fucking horn. We refer to it as a spike. No female deer will mate with that individual. Why? Because they are considered undesirable. And these fucking guys that got no testosterone, they got no fucking life, and they're going to sit here and advocate to have other men clipped. Now, I have had a vasectomy. I'm 39 years old. I got a vasectomy in 2017. I was 35 years old. Actually, I hadn't even turned 35 yet. I was 34, about to turn 35. I got a vasectomy. 35 years old, but you're advocating for young men, younger than 16, to have to be forced into this procedure without knowing what it actually does to a man. Everybody wants a fucking guy to go out and fight your wars and do all the horrible shit that you don't want to fucking do. And that takes testosterone, and that takes fucking courage. And I guarantee you, when you start taking that shit away and you start clipping tubes and you start restricting a man, their testosterone's going to drop. We're going to turn into a fucking gelatin society, and you're not going to be able to defend yourself. This country will fall apart. That's not to say women won't go out there and do any of this shit, but the vast majority of the people willing to do horrible fucking things in defense of this country are men. There's a reason no one watches the fucking WNBA. And there's a reason why the NBA is exciting to watch for a lot of people. There are reasons behind this, and what you're doing is you're gonna stunt males' physical growth. You're advocating for this shit, and it's fucking disgusting. I'm not advocating for a woman to lose her rights. What I said in my post was that the right answer is the advocating of responsible, safe, and consensual sexual interaction. What we should be doing as a country is teaching our children how to be safe and responsible. The problem we live in is we live now in a quick fix society where no one's willing to put up the fucking time and effort for the long goal. It's the short-term gain because everything can be fixed by a fucking pill. Everything can be fixed by surgery. Everything can be fixed by a fucking quick visit to the doctor. We're the most obese country in the world because it's easier to go to fucking McDonald's than it is to go take your fat ass to the fucking gym and work out. It's easier to go get a goddamn drink every fucking day from Sonic rather than walk around your fucking neighborhood. We are a quick fix society, and everybody believes that this is the shit that's going to change us and it's going to make us better. And all you can see is it's gotten worse. No one thinks about the long term. They say shit, they spout shit, and they do shit, and they don't think about the long-term effects, not just physically, but psychologically, emotionally, financially, all of these things. And I think it's fucking disgusting. Think it's disgusting. I get the premise behind what they're trying to say, but even in a joking way, it's fucking insanity. These are women that I see that have nephews, that have sons, that have brothers. These are people that I'm seeing that literally, for example, they don't want to get vaccinated. Cool. But you'll advocate for this? You'll even joke about it? It's not fucking funny. No more than I think that it's funny to stop a woman from getting an abortion. I don't. I believe that the health of the mother is more important than anything else. I believe that's paramount. I have children. I believe that the health of the mother during the pregnancy is paramount to anything else. So, of course, what I'm talking about, any kind of abortion restriction, anything like that, I'm certainly not talking about rape. I'm certainly not talking about, births that are going to jeopardize the health of the mother. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about two people who decided to have sex without using protection and then believe that it's not a big fucking deal because they could just walk out and get an abortion. You make a decision as an adult, but because we live in a quick fix society, you don't actually have to deal with the fucking ramifications of it. That's fucking horrible. That thought process is the fucking problem. If you cannot be a responsible human being to practice safe sex so that you don't run the risk of having children, then you aren't the right person to tell everybody else to be fucking responsible with their lives and how they should do anything. I had my first child when I was 20 years old. My son's mother and I made a conscious decision not to practice safe sex. And we made a conscious decision to raise that child together as best possible. At 20 fucking years old. That was a hard decision to make. It altered the rest of our lives. It changed who we are fundamentally as individuals for the rest of our lives because we had a child at 20 years old. Thank God that the pregnancy posed no risk of her health, and we have a beautiful son. But we were 20, and you got people running around in their 30s and 40s that are supposed to be considered responsible, and they want more rights, and they want more of this, and they want more of that, and they want to be treated like this, but they can't fucking act as mature as two 20-year-olds back in 2002? Why? Because it's fucking easier to walk out and say, oops, I made a mistake. Let me get the quick fix. It's easier, and that's the fucked up part too. It's way easier to go buy a condom. It's way easier to get a condom and practice safe sex. Notice I'm not advocating for a woman to take medication. Now, I know, look, I've got a sister, and when she, was, when her menstrual cycle was coming, she was on her period, hey, she was fucking mean. She was rough on me. My sister was fucking mean. My niece, or my cousin who lived with us, they were both fucking mean. I grew up with two women in the house, and they kicked the shit out of me when I was younger. And it always came around the time. So, but I'm not advocating for that, even though I know some of the results of it, and I've been married before. I know the results of that. I'm not advocating for a woman to take a pill. I'm advocating that if you want to practice safe sex, either the man should wear a condom or the woman should require that a man wear a condom. It's that fucking simple. And if you choose not to use a condom and you choose not to use any other kind of contraception and you choose to have unprotected sex, you understand, you should know and understand what comes along with that. But we've turned into a society that says quick fix, quick fix, quick fix. Oh, I got fat, let me suck it out with a fucking machine. Oh, I got fat, let me cut off half my stomach so I'm not hungry anymore. Oh, I didn't take care of my skin, let me go do a bunch of other bullshit to myself. Quick fix society. I think it's fucking horrible. It's fucking horrible what we do to ourselves. And it's a slippery slope, and it goes like this. It's a snowball. One thing goes the other. Take politics, for example. This should be a really good example. When Bush was in office, there was a lot of people that were upset with what was going on. And you ended up with President Obama, who happened to be way the fuck far on the left, with very overall, as far as the country goes, very extreme views on a whole lot of shit. Now, while he was president, some of that stuff might have changed. Some of that stuff might have come back to the center. It's kind of, most presidents are kind of forced to be that way. But when he was running for office, his ideals and everything were way the fuck on the left. And the reason he won so largely is because people were so fed up with what was going on with Bush. The same thing applies when it came to Trump. There was a huge fucking swing in the collective thought process of the entire country, which people said, we've had enough. We need to take this shit back. And so you had Trump win by a fucking landslide, crushing Clinton. Then the same thing happened with Biden. Now, we can go down that road. It's a different, I don't believe that's necessarily the same thing. I think there's something else going on there. But anyway, you have these huge swings because people aren't consistent enough. I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and I said, look, when you talk about things, not everything is finite. Politicians, for example, abortion, for example, not everything is finite. And you, again, go back to the abortion issue and you say, okay, there's 10 things, if you made up bullet points or whatever, there's 10 things that make up abortion. Okay? When you look at it, you may agree with 6 of those, and you disagree with 4 of them. So you support abortion, but only up to a certain point. It's that fucking easy. So you kind of start looking at things in life that way, and you become a consistent person. You realize that there's consistency there. Instead, you end up with these huge, what we live in today is these huge fucking swings in society because no one is willing to sit there and put in the work and the time for the things that they want down the road. And they're not willing to sacrifice anything in their fucking lives for the future. They want it right here, right now, and they want it every fucking day. And then they want to bitch and complain when it doesn't turn out the way they wanted it 6 months from now. We live in that fucking society today. Because it's instant gratification, Facebook, Instagram, all this bullshit. Instant gratification. So, I don't agree with abortion unilaterally. I believe it has its place. But at the end of the day, I'm not a female. I don't believe that it's my place to say anything about it. What I mean by that is, I don't believe it's my place to dictate to somebody else what they should or should not do. I can say what the fuck I want. I can be vocal all I fucking want. But at the end of the day, I believe that it is up to that individual. I do believe in responsibility. I do believe that. Look, I lost my virginity at 12, and I used a condom. I know vividly that I used it because I had it hidden in my closet. And I went in my closet and I got it. It's that fucking simple. But apparently we don't have enough people in this world that can use their fucking brains. And so what we have to do is we become the thinking part of their actions. The rest of the country has to suffer because people can't use their fucking heads. And then people want to get upset because we have to put things in regulation, guidelines in place that are supposed to require people to fucking think. And then in reality, what you get mad at is that you're being told you got to use your fucking head and that you're responsible for your own actions. That's the worst fucking part about all of this. That any of these things are necessary to begin with because people don't want to be told to use your own fucking brain. And if you choose not to use your brain, don't get mad if someone else forces you to fucking use it. We don't live in a society that takes care of the most well-behaved. We live in a society that regulates and legislates for the most poorly behaved. You don't live in a society that says, okay, for example, the speed limit on the road. There's a reason that the speed limits are set the way they are. You may not agree with it, but there are the reasons for that. Not because the best drivers that are out there are able to manage themselves at doing 85 or 90 miles an hour, but it's because it's found that people overwhelmingly go over that speed and become irresponsible. So they regulate the speed limits. We have roads around here that are 75 miles an hour. We have roads around here that are 35 miles an hour. And they do that because it's been proven that people can't be responsible. And what they end up doing, sure, everybody says, they just kill themselves. Well, that's not always what happens. They're driving down the road, in a 35 mile an hour and they're doing 55 or 60 miles an hour. I mean, I live in a neighborhood here, and the buses go by the house. The speed limit in the neighborhood's 30 miles an hour, but there's constantly people that'll drive through this neighborhood doing 50 miles an hour. And then when the school bus is out there, the school bus didn't have to put a stop sign on the side of it because people used their fucking heads and didn't pass a school bus. They had to put the stop sign out there and create rules and regulations so that people wouldn't kill children. Because somebody did kill children. The reason they put that out there is because somebody actually did. Somebody actually drove by a school bus at some point and drove over a child. Because this massive fucking yellow vehicle in front of them wasn't enough to tell them to slow the fuck down or don't pass because there's children that might be walking by. So what did they do? They put laws in place that punish people for doing such things. We live in a society that regulates and legislates for the most poorly behaved, not for the well-behaved. So you have to think about that. You're not going to get a reward because you are responsible during sex, other than you didn't get pregnant. But there now have to be regulations because people go out of fucking control with it. If you're going to choose not to be safe during sex, there now has to be somebody to step in to make you think about your fucking decision. It's no different. And when you guys wake up to that shit, you'll stop advocating to tell a boy he's got to get a fucking vasectomy because somehow he's the responsible. Because that's the other part. It says, stop abortion at its source by making males get a vasectomy. Are you fucking kidding me? What you literally just said is that the male is literally responsible for all the creation of a child, and that when it comes to actually either having the child or not having the child, the man has no fucking say-so. The man's solely responsible for it, but then has no say-so whether the child's brought into this world or not. How fucking crazy is that? And sadly, some of these same people are the ones that are saying the male is ultimately responsible for the vasectomy, but when it comes to the divorce or a child being separated from their father, that the woman should maintain all the fucking rights. Well, if the guy is the one that's responsible for it, let him have his child. How about that? Should we start advocating for taking, if a woman ever thought about getting an abortion and she changed her mind, but hey, at some point she thought about having an abortion, should we say that that woman loses her child and now has to, and the man should get the child? You see how fucking stupid that sounds? I mean, it's a snowball and it goes down this road and it's fucking sad and disgusting. So, you know, I saw that and, you know, like I said, I don't believe it's my place to tell a woman what to do with her body. But even joking about something like that is just fucking insane. You have to see the insanity in something like that. It bothers me because there's people out there that are taking it fucking serious. There are people out there that take that shit seriously and they really advocate for that stuff. There's this fucking dipshit on Facebook. Unfortunately, we have a lot of mutual friends from all over the country. I won't say his name, but I think he's a fucking idiot. He believes he's the smartest person in the room at all times, but he's just a fucking dumbass. You know, every post he ever made was shit on Trump, shit on Trump, shit on Trump. And he's been completely fucking silent about Biden. He never voted for Biden because he believed Biden was a better person. He voted for Biden because he believed Trump, because he didn't like Trump. He wasn't a Trump supporter. He wasn't a Biden supporter. He was a Trump hater. And now on these comments, he's actually making comments on some of these posts about the vasectomy. And somehow it's we've been advocating. You're a fucking dude. You're a boy. There is no we. He's not talking about him and his wife. He's talking about we, the people. We've been advocating. Okay, advocate for safe and responsible sex. I'm not saying take away the right of an abortion, but there's clearly a large amount of people who aren't willing to be responsible. If you go to prison, because you're not conscious of the realities and you're being forced now to be punished essentially for the consequences of your own actions. I'm not saying having a child is the consequences, but Jesus, how many people are going to stop and think, maybe I should be responsible about sex if I don't have another option? Again, I'm not saying take all the options away. I'm simply saying imagine that. Imagine if you were told you had no option but to have the child. Would other people start thinking better about it? Would you then have a woman having children with multiple men? And just continue to have children with multiple men? Hey, men are just as guilty. I've got 3 kids from 3 separate women. I'm just as guilty, but I'm paying for it. I pay child support for my children, and I have been since I was 21 years old when my son's mother and I got divorced. I've paid child support now for 18 years, and I take care of my children, and I'm fucking responsible for it. So I believe I have a little fucking say-so in responsibility and taking responsibility for your own actions. If you were made to believe that you couldn't have more children without suffering consequences because you couldn't go and do something else, that might encourage other people to start practicing safe sex. Because we didn't have this epidemic run rampant throughout the country of unwanted children and this explosion in population until abortion was legalized. All of this started when it was ultimately legalized. Now apparently there's there's an overwhelming amount of unwanted children in this world. No, I think that there's an overwhelming amount of irresponsible people in this world that believe that there's a quick fix for something like this. See, everybody wants to complain about what's different about our society, what's wrong with the generation we live in today. I'm going to tell you what the fucking is wrong with the generation today. You're not willing to fucking take responsibility for your own goddamn actions. That's not to say that people back in the 30s and 40s wanted every child that came across, that they wanted to go through birth and pregnancy and all this. That's not to say that. But they had no other choice but to live with the consequences of their actions. And we didn't have an overwhelming, this apparently epidemic of unwanted children that apparently we have now. Crazy to me. Again, I believe I'm a conservative individual from the point of view that I want lower taxes, less government control on everything. But I certainly have, I believe, what would be defined as liberal sensibilities. And like I said, just common sense. But apparently there's not enough of that in this fucking country. There's not enough common sense out there. And so now we have to regulate for the most poorly behaved. And that's the reality of it. So it blows my mind. But anyway, I got to go. I hope everybody enjoys their Labor Day. I actually have to go get some work done. Except for this fucking douchebag on Facebook. Again, I won't say his name, but he's a fucking idiot. With the exception of him, I hope everybody has a wonderful day. I hope everybody has enjoyed their weekend. Here in the United States, we are celebrating Labor Day today. Most people don't know that it actually started based on the labor movement, and it was the result of a lot of hard work, people unionizing, things like that, people dying on job sites. There's a lot, but Labor Day is to celebrate the workers, the efforts that's been made in this country, and so it's just an extra day of rest. But unfortunately, catastrophe has hit Louisiana, and I have to go do some extra work today while my crews are out there working. So anyway, thank you, everybody. I love you all very, very much. Know that deeply, deeply down inside. I love you all. And I hope, except for the douchebag on Facebook, that you all have a fantastic day. And I'll talk to you soon.